Hello, welcome to the new studio space and to the Remotely Speaking podcast. I'm Krista Hawkins, your host today. Paul Hawkins is taking the day off. We're going to have a little girl power today, a little girl sesh. Our special guest today is Krista Hawkins. Same last name, no relation, but just as awesome. She is a business owner, just like I am, and we have lots of conversations about lady business owning and all that goes into that, and I'm excited to bring that conversation to you today. Krista has many years and a broad wealth of experience, and I'll let her share that. I don't want to steal her thunder. So I'm going to introduce her and we will get started. Krista, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chastity.
We're excited to have you. So I said that you're a business owner. That business is Future Legacy Partners, and you coach agencies, business owners, and their teams, and all of the dynamics that go along with that to make them as successful as they can possibly be. And I know personally, hearing from our customers and clients, that you and your business partner, Wendy, are making huge impacts on businesses and their teams and their agencies. And so I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell everyone a little bit about your background and kind of how you got here. And we'll start there and see where the conversation takes us. How about it?
That sounds good. Thanks again for having me. And likewise, our clients, we talk so much about what you all do and how you get to serve agencies as well. And so I love that as business owners and women, we get to help each other and support each other. So that's cool. So a little bit about me. I grew up actually in Illinois and came from a super close-knit, loving family. I was an athlete. I was a swimmer and actually swam in college at a D1 college. And that's where I met my husband, Chad. He was a baseball player. And so we, that was a long time ago. We're about to celebrate our 29th wedding anniversary next week, which is pretty cool. And while we were in Illinois, I ended up staying after my undergrad, and I obtained my master's in counseling psychology, and I worked in that arena for a little while as an outpatient drug and alcohol therapist. And then we moved to Kentucky, and I was an adoption therapist there and loved that work. My husband was working for State Farm as a claim rep, and then into the HR field with State Farm. And so I ended up, when we moved to Tennessee, interviewing with State Farm and ended up joining that family. So I was able to use my degree in the roles that I was in at the company and make a living, as well, which is always a good thing. So I was at State Farm for 22 years, a long time coaching and training agents, everything from being an agency recruiter to running the pre-selection program for agents, running the training program for our zone, which was Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ohio. And then I moved up to corporate, not physically, but worked from the corporate space on agent intern training and coaching, and then joined a coaching team called Agency Development Programs. And that's where I met my business partner, Wendy Smith. We were coaching on the same team together, which was really amazing. And simultaneously, while I was working as a coach for State Farm, I actually went back to school to become a holistic health coach. And so I did that back in 2011, and I started that health coaching business and had a team of people that I worked with in the Juice Plus company for a very, very long time, still affiliated with that business. And while I was at corporate in 2016, some things started to change. We were working, I was traveling 25 weeks a year, coaching to different places. State Farm would tell you where to go, and you went. And I got the privilege of doing the work that I really, really love. But that's a lot of travel, being a wife and a mom of two girls. And so in 2017, Wendy and I started thinking about, okay, what could we do? How could we serve our customers in the best possible way and create a better life for ourselves. And we wrote our business plan. We piloted our very first program, the Team Series, in November 1st, 2018. We launched our Scratch company, which is, it may sound kind of crazy because I left a six-figure salary and benefits right before sending kids to college to start a Scratch company with 0 clients and 0 money. So I know that does not sound very reasonable, but I'm a very faith-based person, and I just trusted God would take care of us. And if it didn't work out, I would go work at Sprouts and then do health coaching full time. So
Perfect.
that's a little bit about my journey.
Well, and here you are. How many years later? Let's do some math.
Yeah.
How many years in business, Krista?
So we are like 8 years in business. So it worked out.
Yeah,
so
it
it was a
did.
good bet.
Your leap of faith paid off and worked out, and all the impact you're making, which is so awesome.
Yeah.
Would you say that motherhood or your life situation kind of caused you to take that leap? Was that you're like, okay, it's time. We need to do this?
Yes. I wanted to be a fully present mom, and it worked. I was able to work it out when I would leave town. On Monday morning, I would send them off to school, and I would be back Wednesday night or Thursday of that week. And I traveled every other week. But it was a lot of planning and a lot of preparation to get the kids where they needed to go, and meals prepped, and all the things that you do as a mom. And so, yes, I wanted to be present. I wanted to be at every swim meet. Both of my girls were swimmers, which is exciting. And, I wanted to be there for my husband too. He is a State Farm agent. He's been an agent for 22 years. So he was building his, business as well. And so it was important for me to have, some balance there.
Yeah. And isn't it awesome that we live in a place that we can do that? We can choose to build our own life and start our own businesses. And I feel incredibly blessed, and I know you probably do as well, every single day that we get to do something we chose to do and that we built, and we get to help people along the way. So I love that story. You have a lot of facets. Well, our audience is business owners, mostly. So if you could go back to that first year in business, or as you were thinking about your business and getting it started, is there anything that you would do differently?
To do differently. You know what? I don't think so. I don't think so, because I really believe, like I said, I'm a very faith-based person, and I believe everything that I've been a part of leading up to this was a part of starting this business. And I feel like we got some really sound advice that first year. We have a mentor who is very successful in multiple businesses. And he said, obviously you've got to get really grounded, and you need to know your vision and your mission and who you want to serve, and like where your heart is. So like that's a foundational piece. And then obviously I joined in business with my best friend, who I immensely trust with my life. And I think that's really important too, to know who you go in business with. We have the same core values. We're very, very different people. Like when you meet us, we're very, very different. In fact, I'm even tall and she's super tiny. And so, we're very different personalities, but we have the same core values. And I think that's really important. We had the same vision for what we wanted to do. She's also a wife and a mom. Her husband owns multiple businesses. And so our mentor said, get clear about your foundation. And then we did a lot of brainstorming, and we built a program. It's called the Team Series, and it's for leaders and teams to go through together, hearing the same thing. And it's a holistic approach where we're focusing in on the person, you as a person, as a human being first, then as a professional, and then as a team. And it's all the underlying things that really help promote a team's culture and their business. It's not product knowledge. It's not sales. It's all the other things that make a big impact. And so we wanted to stay true to who we were and what we wanted to focus on. And I think that was good advice. And he said, get that program good. And so we really worked on that program. He said, do that before you launch into additional programs and additional things. And so we listened we listened to our customers, and every year we update or we change, things based off of the opinions of multiple people. If we get major feedback, then we make those adjustments. And so I wouldn't change how we've done things. I'm really happy. I'm really proud. I guess the only thing I would change is I really wish we had tech support. I do really, really miss, I really miss tech support.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, can you help me? Oh yeah, that's me.
Oh, wait, that's me.
That's so maybe that's what I would change there. But I'm really proud of how we built it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you got excellent advice. We got similar advice that in the very, very beginning, we called it your why. You have to know your why. And you can call it vision, you can call it mission, you can call it, values. But for us, it was the why. And my husband and I, who is, by the way, my IT guy, he is all things business, but that man knows his computers. And so if something breaks, I have one on speed dial, usually in the chair behind me. And so that is handy. But knowing your why is something that we preach within our company, but also for every remote worker that we train, we have them identify that, because when things get difficult, if you don't have a deep-seated why or mission or vision or a set of values, you're going to give up. Like it's a lot easier to throw up your hands if you're not rooted to something that keeps you going every day. And so for me, it's my children and my family, and definitely the flexibility to be there and to help however many families and business owners as we can. So I love that that's where you started, and that's the advice that you got in the beginning. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so speaking of advice then, if you could give one piece of advice to business owners out there, what is the one piece of advice that comes to mind?
I think kind of going with what you just said, number one, you have to have that guiding vision and that strong why. And I think if you don't, it makes it really hard to follow through on what you're wanting to achieve. And it makes it hard too for you to hire in people, to try to buy into you and what you're doing if you don't have that strong why and that strong vision, as well. And so that would be like number one without fail. You have to have a strong why and a strong vision and mission. But beyond that, kind of like twofold, like on one side of the story, then now you need to create some operating philosophies. What's your belief system about all of the things that you are doing in your business? And from that, those operating philosophies, you create systems and processes. And you have to be really, really clear if you're hiring a team, what are their roles and what is your role as a leader? What are you good at? What are you gifted at? What do you want to be doing? And just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you should be doing those things. What are those higher payoff activities for you as leader and the owner of the business? So you got to get clear about your role and your responsibilities, but I'm very clear about your team's role and responsibilities, because where there's gray area, then there's confusion and all kinds of problems can happen as a result of that. And so when you have those clear roles, the responsibilities, now as a leader, I get to work with you on what your goals are. And those need to be really clear and set out and broken down. Okay, this is your yearly goal. This is your monthly goal. This is your weekly goal. I'm a big fan of daily method of operation, really setting your intention for each day. And these are the things that you need to work on in order to reach your weekly goal, because not doing it isn't an option, right? So we either have to get it done or we have to figure out what those obstacles are and spending a lot of time outlining what gets in your way. I mean, you know your life, you know your business better than anybody else. What are the things that get in your way, and how can you avoid them if possible? Or if they come your way, how do you handle those in a really effective and efficient, manner? So we've got to know those obstacles, and you've got to set your team up for success in knowing how to work through those obstacles, and then working on your commitment level to those goals. And then the sidebar of that is, as a leader and even as a team member, you need to be accountable for your responsibilities. Like, I own that job. I'm the CEO of my job, whether I own the business or I'm working in the business, I'm the CEO of that particular role. So I need to be accountable for those goals. And as a leader, I need to hold my team accountable. And boy, is that the hardest thing for them to do. So you have all of that. And then the other piece is, I need to know who you are as a human, right? I need to know what motivates me, my strong why, but I need to invest in my team, and I need to understand what motivates them. And I need to be a good human, and I need to invest in my team to help them better themselves as human beings. I need to know their personality type. I need to know how they react on good days and under stress. I need to know how to help them buy into, like, what are their core belief systems and what are their guiding philosophies just as a human being, right? I need to pour into them and make sure they're healthy and they're well. They're not showing up to work tired and sick and, not engaged. So I need to build them up as a human being. And then I need to help develop them as a professional. And every team member deserves a leader who invests in them in that way. And when you do, you're creating this culture and this community that makes your team want to come to work. I hear so often that leaders are frustrated, high turnover rate, they can't get team to show up, or they're not consistent with their goals. Well, have you done this part that I talked about? But also, are you meeting with them one-on-one consistently every month, finding out, okay, hey, what's going on? What's going well? Where are you getting stuck? Let's overcome those things. Let's see where you're at with your goals and your objectives. And then if you're not consistent, how can I help you? Like, what have I done as a leader to make sure that I've set you up for success? And so it's twofold. And I think that so many leaders and business owners focus on, can I get in a good person, right? I'll throw some training at them, right? A little bit, maybe not enough. I may meet with them at first, to make sure that they're ready to go. And then you're on your own. Occasionally I may do some team meetings. I don't really invest in one-on-ones. I don't want to do one-on-ones. I don't know what I might get in those one-on-ones. I'm not preparing for them. And I'm certainly not developing you as a human being. And then they get frustrated because they're like, well, I've spent all this money on sales, coaching. I spent all this money on product knowledge. I've thrown all these programs at you, and you're not logging in, or you're not consistent. But the leader's also not following up and following through and doing their due diligence, to build them up there and create that community. That's so important. That makes me want to come to work, and do a good job. So a long answer
No,
to
it's
that
perfect.
question.
Team culture is everything. And it does start at the top. The leader, the CEO, the boss has to set the goal, set the vision, but then it's their responsibility to get buy-in from the team and then have the team take ownership of the entire goal and their piece of it. And so I love that you brought up the ownership, that each team member is a CEO of their job. And I love that. That's a great way to think about it. I never thought about it in that way. And we have to have our teams feel like humans. They're not a cog in the machine. They're not just a number plugging away, helping us reach this giant pie in the sky goal. They need to feel cared for and invested in, and that they can grow, and that there's room for that, and that you support that as the boss. And so I think that's fabulous advice. And I'm going to steal your CEO of your position wording. I think it's awesome. If you don't mind, I'm going to steal it.
Yes, please
So
do.
let's talk a little bit about your coaching practice. Do you have any like fun success stories or any anecdotes, examples that you could give to the listeners that they might be encouraged by, or maybe learn a lesson from?
We have so many stories. Gosh. So, I'll go like two ends of the spectrum. One, we have had business owners, agents who have contacted us, and they are in the throes of it. I can name countless agents who are in team turmoil. They've let go the whole team. They've had major changeover. They aren't hitting goals consistently. They're not happy. They can't really define success for them. They're comparing themselves to everybody else, which is such a danger zone, a big danger zone. And so they're just kind of in, like I said, like the thick of it. And so, I do private coaching, and sometimes we start there and we just start weeding through, okay, number one, close the doors. It's me and you. What does success mean for you? Let's really talk about it. What does that mean? And it's not really, for some, it's all the pins and the plaques and the trips and things like that. And that's great. If that motivates you, we'll go with that. But for many, it's, I want to bring home X amount of dollars. I want some balance in my life. I want to be able to get home at a reasonable hour. I don't want to resent being in my office, and I want a good team. And so we just have to chip away at each one of those things, making like small steps. And then I really encourage from there, like, if you can, get in our team series. We only offer that starting in January and April of every year. And once the train leaves the station, we're done, for the year. So with the timing, I'll say get in our team series, because then we can help you grow and build as a leader and as a team. And we're going to cover over 70 different topics that are going to affect all teams. I may refer them out. They may need to come to you and, hire you all to help them with the service, or get a sidekick, right? Get that life specialist to help run down all the things that need to happen after a life sale. Or maybe they need to go to like autopilot, and you need to be consistent, with your recruiting. Or maybe you do need product and sales, training. And so I'll refer out to the multiple vendors that do those services. And so I'll start there, get them in the team series, or if the timing is better and it's working better for them, I'll get them in our leader series, where they get to focus on them as an individual, as a leader, as a business owner in a private group. So we cap our group sizes at 12 agents, and they're in there working on their business. Our curriculum is no joke. It is no joke. So I'm like, sign up if you're really ready to do the work, and you need to be accountable, because we are going to bring to your attention the things that you need to work on, but you're not doing it. And now you get that accountability and that community. And, sometimes too, it's also, well, I'm trying to develop these leaders within my team. Well, then I'll say, get those leaders in our Aspiring Leader series, where we can help you build up those leaders so that you can be more of the CEO of your agency. And so success, from there, I have got so many success stories. I'm thinking of one female agent. We started with private coaching, and she was kind of in turmoil and inconsistent. For her, she really wanted to hit a life travel goal. She wanted to get a MOA eventually. a second office. And we started there. She did the team series. She did performance planning with me 2 years in a row. And now, like, you fast forward and she's hitting chairman's circle, which is a big accolade. And that was her goal, right? Which is, I don't care what your goals are. I'm going to help you attain those goals, but you decide what they are. She's consistent, level 2, level 3 with the life travel, and she's a successful MOA agent, which is really cool. So it's cool to see that transition. But then also, I love working with already established agencies. So this year we got the opportunity to speak at study groups, and we spoke to a very big study group. They probably were one of the best accountability that I have ever seen in a study group. And we did a private session for them, and ended up, there were several agents from that group that worked with us. And so you've got these big agencies. One in particular has 3 agencies. His wife is an agent, and she has 2 agencies. So it's 5 agencies in one household. That's a lot going on. And it was so fun to work with them and to see his leaders go through Aspiring Leader series and team series and just grow even beyond where they were at. So I don't know, success stories to me, it really doesn't matter who you are, where you're a business owner. It's about helping you get from where you're at now to where you want to be. And sometimes that's with health and wellness too. That's a whole nother story. And I do a lot of coaching in that arena as well with these business owners.
We might have to do a whole separate episode on the holistic approach and the whole health side of things, because I love that. Yeah. I could talk about that part all day. All right. So you were talking about, I'm going to just kind of rewind a tiny bit. When we first started talking about success stories, you mentioned that you often help a business owner kind of define success, whatever that looks like for them. So I'm curious to hear what is your definition of success in your life and your business?
Okay. So number one for me, keeping Jesus number one and trusting his plan no matter what. And it's the coolest thing because as I reflect back, even from the very beginning, I can see these seeds. I can see him working even through the hard things. And so if I can keep that faith, number one, stay grounded, that's success. But just giving every single day 100%, for our company, for my business partner, for Wendy, I want to show up for her every single day. And obviously for our clients, giving them truly what they need. So every coaching session being like where my feet are planted and being 100% in. And I think too, success for me is, can we reach more leaders and teams? And it's all businesses, all leaders, to be able to, for us to grow every single year with our business, that success. And of course, selling out our programs, that's success too. But I think more importantly is just being a role model for my girls. I've got my oldest is 23 and she started her own business. She's a college grad, Roll Tide. She went to the University of Alabama. And it's so fun to get to see her fulfilling her dream, her desire. And then my youngest is a junior at Samford University, and she's going into nursing and wants to do anesthesiology. So completely different. I have one who's a personal stylist into fashion, and the other one, I said, one will dress me and one will put me to sleep. So there's that. And so for success for me is seeing them fulfill their dreams, but being a good role model for them. I'm trying to take care of myself, take care of my family, and do a good job in fulfilling work, do work that I love, and trying to just help people become better, better versions of themselves. And so I guess that would be my definition of success.
Love it. It's perfect. Well, I would be amiss. This is remotely speaking, and we run a remote business, and you work all over the place. And so I would be remiss not to ask if you have any tips for any business owners out there, or even teams that are working remotely. If you have seen any pitfalls or things that maybe you've seen or experienced with some of the teams that you've coached that have remote workers, is there any advice you can impart on that?
Yes. Number one, you want to stay connected with your people. You've got to stay connected, and that's through like team texts, text messages and keeping the energy going. And that might just be like at the first of the day, setting the intention. How do you plan to win the day? What's going on? What's going good? Checking in, later in the afternoon, FaceTimes, especially for your extroverts. If you have remote team members that are extroverts, they thrive on that energy and they get more energy when they're in connection with other people. And so staying connected with them is really important. And two, making sure your introverted folks, stay plugged in and feel like they're a part of the team. And so get consistent with team meetings. Try to do as much FaceTime as you can. I mean, we're in this virtual world and you and I aren't sitting in the same room, but we're sitting in the same room. We can see each other's eyeballs, and there's a lot with the nonverbals that you can glean, from your remote workers, but pouring into them and giving them opportunities to grow and develop, as well. And so I think it's the responsibility of a business owner. If you're going to raise up a virtual team, you have to stay connected. And, my entire team is remote. Future Legacy, we're all over the place, and we work with teams all over the place. And so I think it's important to make sure that you are consistent with your one-on-ones with them, you're consistent with team meetings, and you're consistently staying, keeping them in the loop every single day.
Yeah, that's good advice. We often see remote workers kind of get lost. They're out of sight, out of mind. And so inclusion is huge. And it makes them feel so much more valued and a part of the team at large. What about from the workers' side? Have you seen anything in your team series that maybe someone's working remotely? Is there anything you've seen them do or you've coached them to do that has kind of helped that dynamic along?
Yeah. Know your role, know your responsibilities, ask questions, don't assume, right? And don't let something fester either. If you've got something to say, then make sure that you take that initiative, work hard, know your goals and do that. But, it's kind of cool. You mentioned, staying in the, staying engaged. With our team series, we invite agents to invite their remote workers, obviously in the team series, and that includes their ARS employees.
Yay.
So we've had some ARS employees attend our team series, and we love it, and they love it. They feel like, hey, I'm such a part of this team. And so I think as an employee, you've got to ask for what you need and what you want as well, but you've got to show up and you need to put in that work too. You can't be not giving 100% each and every day just because you're working from home. You got to give it your all.
And because you're not physically there where your boss can see you working, you almost have to work more, not necessarily more out loud.
Right.
You have to be more visible with what you're doing to make sure that everyone's seeing your value and they're not assuming you're just hanging out at home with your dog, on your couch, not working, right?
Yes.
Awesome. That's really good advice. Well, as we kind of wrap this up, maybe there's someone out there that's like, oh my gosh, I need her coaching, or I really need to talk to her about this dynamic or this part of my team. So why don't you go ahead and tell us how our listeners can find out more about your business, maybe the types of sessions you offer, anything you want to share that will allow them to find you and to hire you and get all the help you provide.
All right. So you can find us. We have a website, ourfuturelegacy.com. So you just go right there and it lists out all of our programs. You can connect with me and have a discovery conversation with me. That's what I encourage most leaders to do. And let's just kick the tires and see where you're at, what you're needing. If I'm not what you're needing, I will tell you and I'll say, hey, I have tons of resources. I know a lot of vendors out there. Maybe consider going here first and then get that going and then come back to us, when you're ready. So I'll be honest, with those leaders, we do have performance planning and we are booking those sessions through the fall into January. Those are private. We also do them with teams, groups of teams, which is a lot of fun. So performance planning really works on your business and plans for the following year. And it includes a 360 team assessment. So you're like, I want to know, but I really don't want to know. We're going to tell you. And I'm going to give you feedback on what I see as common themes or discrepancies within the team. And then we have our team series, which we start every January and April every year. So I'm enrolling for 2026 for that. We have the Aspiring Leader series just for a key team member who's an informal or formal leader in the office. And we start that in January and July every year. We're already sold out of all of these programs for this year. Praise God. But we'll start again in January. And then Leader series is just for the agent, just for that leader. And we start that in January and August every year. And so we do some private coaching as well. And we speak at different conferences or study groups and can customize based off of what, that group is needing. And so I guess that's our bag of tricks. And you can email us at info@ourfuturelegacy.com or just visit our website and schedule a discovery conversation through there.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. Do you have any parting comments for the listeners out there that you would want to share?
Invest in yourself as a human being. Take care of yourself. Put your oxygen mask on you first. As a leader, it's tough out there. We know it's tough out there. We love y'all. So make sure that you are investing in yourself and invest in your team.
Awesome. Krista, you are awesome. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today and for sharing all of this amazing wisdom. I really do encourage you guys to check out what she and Wendy are doing. They're making huge differences, and I think every business owner could benefit from hearing them out and going through a session or 2 or 6. Hopefully you don't need that many, but we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Chastity.
Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Remotely Speaking Podcast. If you want to check out more about Krista's business, you can visit the website that we dropped below when she mentioned it. If you want to check out more of ours, you can find us on agencyresourcesolutions.com or arsidekicks.com. You can also follow those businesses and the podcast everywhere the podcasts are and on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook. You can find the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, and probably other places that I'm forgetting. But we appreciate you guys joining us today, and we will see you next time.